3, 2, 1.
Mercy me, what's going on? Drop to my knees, God keep me strong. This world is crazy, losing my mind. Is this 2020 or 1969? Going backwards, can't get it. Every time I watch the news, another black man's dead. Speak up, we gotta call out the wrong. We won't rest until Trayvon can make it home. Who knows how much more we can take? I can't take no more. You see these tear stains on my face. Keep sticking to our guns. We're gonna fight, not run. But don't stand for hate, stand for love. So what we gonna do now? Yeah. So what we gonna do now? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got my face on the ground, foot on my neck, crushing my chest while I'm telling you I can't breathe. I can't breathe. If we get cut, we both bleed. If I was down, would you help me? Keep moving forward. We've come too far. Don't judge me by my skin, but love me for my art. Who knows how much more we can take? I can't take no more. You see these tear stains on my face. Keep sticking to our guns. We're gonna fight, not run. But don't stand for hate, stand for love. So what we gonna do now? Yeah. So what we gonna do now? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got my face on the ground, foot on my neck, crushing my chest while I'm telling you I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Thank you.
Woo!
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, that was Miss Taylor right there, Taylor Hall. Okay. And art really tells the time. That was well done, masterfully done, and masterfully true and masterfully well. I hope you can feel that. Tamika, can you feel that?
I feel it. I feel it. When I heard her, I went to a sit-in this past weekend, which a couple of the young ladies from Black Women in Charge are joining us today. But when I went to the sit-in and I heard her sing, I said, we gotta have her. We gotta have her. We gotta have her as part of the conversation. So we are blessed, not I. We are all blessed
That's right.
to
That's
have
right.
her. And
Okay.
the whole crew. We got the whole crew. Well, not all the crew. We got majority of Black women in charge. Maybe 50%.
Just a few.
50%. 50%.
Yeah, we got half of them.
Half of 50%. Okay, I know there's 6 of y'all, so 50%.
All right. Well, what we wanted to do is what you want to do. You want to have everybody introduce themselves. Let's go around real quick for everybody following us live. If you are following
Yeah.
us live, go ahead and share this live. Let's go ahead and get the word out. Let's have a conversation tonight. That's what we're here to do.
So today, let me just kick it off real fast. We are in week 2. So we were only going to do this for 1 week, and it went so well last week that we said, you know what? we're not just going to do it for week 2. We're going to go ahead and just do it every Friday for the rest of the month. So what
Keep the
y'all
party
need to do
started.
right now, yeah, what we need to do really is, and I tried to find a little light, the sun, when the sun sets, we'll get the lighting will be right. I know you were talking about me last week, Eric, so I try to get in a different position, right? But what I need people to do is go ahead and block your schedule for every Friday this month from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We'll talk more about the next topic at the end of the time. But the topic for today, and don't ask me how I came up with this. I didn't come up with it, actually. Somebody asked me the question, and I was like, you know what? This is a great topic. So the topic is racism exists. Now, how do we talk to our kids about it? And I know you're looking and you're like, okay, well, Lord willing, some of these kids don't have kids or teenagers don't have kids yet, but really what the topic is how do we talk to our kids? How do we talk to our parents? How do we talk to our brothers, our nephews, our nieces, our aunts? How do we just talk about it in general? So that is the kind of the hook, but we're gonna have a great conversation. So with that, I am going to follow Eric's lead, and we will jump into, everybody kind of gave their own little bio. So we're gonna do a quick bio, let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll get on with the show. Eric, come on, let's do
Okay,
it.
cool, good. Well, let's go ahead and round the room, and I'm just gonna go as I have it written down on the list. Let's go ahead and start with you, Drew.
You're muted.
Unmute. Yeah. It's funny. My son had his last day of school today. He's 9. He just finished 3rd grade. And so he's the one that has to teach me about Zoom, about how to unmute and mute. And I'm in his room so you can see all of his, he's a big Indiana fan, even though we live in LA, I've taught him right. But my name's Drew Powell. I'm an actor, born in Noblesville, raised in Lebanon, Indiana, went to DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, and moved out here right after I graduated, and I've been lucky enough to do what I love, pursue my dream, and be a full-time actor for almost the entire time I've been out here. So I've been really lucky. I've been all over the world. Lived in New York for 4 years when I did a show called Gotham, which was kind of based on the Batman lore, prequel to Batman. And then we moved back here a couple years ago, and so now we're back in Southern California. But getting on the road here next week, and we're going to drive. My mom and dad and my sister and her family all still live in Indy, so we're driving. We're going to hit the road. We're gonna go at old school style, and so I'll be back with you fine folks here in a couple weeks.
We can't wait.
Awesome.
Hey, Black women in charge, ladies, we're gonna have to see if we can get Drew, like get him out to one of our marches, one of the sit-ins, one of the rallies, whatever we got.
Love it. I'm there.
Out there with that Solomon Grundy outfit.
We try to throw that in there too, like
I'm loving
like called Gotham. You never heard of it? Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Taylor. How you doing? Introduce yourself. That's who you just heard.
My name is Taylor Hall. I am also a co-founder of Black Women in Charge. I'm a student at Ball State University. I'm going into my junior year. I'm passionate about activism. I'm involved in my campus. I'm president of Men and Women of Color, and playing the guitar and singing is one of my hidden talents, but I think I'm going to start pursuing it and performing more since our last sit-in. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
All right, let's pass it over here to Morgan.
Hi, my name's Morgan. I go to Rebuff Jesuit. I'm going to be a senior, and I play soccer, and I have a fashion blog, but I've really been focusing on like what you can do during these times, like to help everyone around you and to be like more of an activist.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us, Morgan.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, I'm gonna bounce across the screens here. I don't know how you guys are seeing this, but we got Mr. Stephen Holder over here. What you got for us?
You're on mute.
Yeah.
You would think we've all been on Zoom enough the last 3 months to know better. But anyway, hey, I'm Stephen Holder. Thanks for having me. I am a sports writer. Like Drew, I get to do what I love every day, something I've wanted to do since high school. And currently, my job is primarily I cover the Indianapolis Colts for a website called The Athletic. I've worked at the Miami Herald and the Indy Star locally as well. So thus my presence in Indiana. But it's interesting to me because sports has kind of been at the center of a lot of what's happening right now. I think, you know, as evidenced by Tamika's involvement here tonight. And I think we've seen so many voices, I think now, you know, become emboldened, right, by what's happening in our streets. So I've been in a unique position to be able to take a lot of that in and hear amplify a lot of those voices. So I'm happy to be here tonight and looking forward to a conversation.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. And so now we're going to pass to Yasmin and Naya.
Nia.
Nia, gotcha. I do
Nia.
apologize. With Black Women in Charge.
So yes, I'm Yasmin Anderson. I'm 20. I went to Rebuff Jesuit as well. And now I go to Xavier University of Louisiana as a biology pre-med student. I'm a junior this year, finally. This is really my first ever activist movement per se, or I mean, I've only been to 3 protests in my life and 2 of them were ours. So it's been interesting to see how passionate people really are about this and how just giving them the platform, I mean, 10,000 people are coming out and it's like, where would they be if we weren't doing this? So I think Taylor, Nia Hayat, Tashara, Sadia, and I are in Langdon are definitely feeling like we're in this for the long haul, all gas, no brakes, because people are depending on us now to continue giving them the platform to really show their support for not just Black Lives Matter. This is like the current issue, but definitely other racial disparities in the country and across the globe, really, whenever we have the time. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nia Hayat. If it's easier, you can just go with Hayat. And I'm 18. I go to Xavier University of Louisiana. I also graduated from Rebuff and I study neuroscience pre-med. You know, like she was saying, this has been a very passion-filled time with our protesting. But I'm really excited for this conversation because there's a lot of things we can do outside of protesting and dialogue needs to be had for sure. And I'm really glad to have you here, Morgan and Drew, because this needs to happen between all races for sure. That's all. Thank you.
Gotcha. Hey, your name is Nia?
Hayat. There's 2. It's
Nia Hayat. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's easier. Like I said, I'm gonna get it right. Period.
Thank you.
You know, I can humble myself. And we have our visual artist tonight, and I don't know what this brother is. Oh, really? You gonna do us like that, Mike?
Come on, Mike.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to take himself off mute.
We have a visual artist, and like you can see, we have some phenomenal artists, and that's really kind of been the bridge that me and Tamika have been able to cross upon these last couple of years. So being able to see visual artists bring things to life, to really kind of tap into the atmosphere is just kind of been something we've been able to journey through. So we got Mr. Mike Martin down here, and I don't know what you're working on, but tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got for us tonight.
So I'm doing basically right now I'm just sketching out the officer and the protester having a standoff, and you know, just kind of working on that right now. I've actually just done a picture of George Floyd downtown. I just wrapped up today a mural, so
yeah,
hopefully y'all get to see that. And kind of just watching, you know, I went to the protest and checked it out, and just kind of watching what's going on and closely monitoring, because I've never seen anything, you know, this magnitude. So it's a lot, you know. So, but yeah, I'm just an artist, man.
Not just an artist. Not just an artist. Mike. Yeah, not just an artist.
Well, you know,
you're a really good artist.
Right.
Thank you. But yeah, so that's about it. I'm trying to get y'all a nice amount of this work done before I get out here. So.
Indeed, we thank you.
No problem.
And first, again, we want to thank our host here, Tamika Ketchen, again, for using this platform and to just adapt. You know, we was in the shop, and so this adapting to the times and the culture, and we discussed that. All right, guys, let's go. You ready? All right, we're gonna have fun. So racism exists. How do we teach the kids? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But let's see if we can try to get not necessarily on the same page. And I want everybody to kind of tap into that. But racism exists. It's almost to say that, because I remember very well, maybe like in the 90s and early, when people say, I didn't know racism exists. I've heard that from white people. I've heard that from black people. I've heard that from multiple. I don't know what racism is. And I'm like, so what are you seeing versus what you're feeling? And what do you know? And how do you know that you know what you know? How do you guys define racism? Let's go.
To me, racism is more of a divide and conquer system, maybe a superiority complex. I really can't say that it has affected me, but I can see how it's important to see the diversity within my own race. And that's one thing that going far away from home, going to New Orleans has definitely taught me, is that I thought that I knew everything there was to know about being Black. And then I realized that I only had one piece or one idea of what the Black experience really could be. So I think that along with racism, yes, of course, you want all people of other races to understand us and to value us and to not be racist. But before that can happen, we need to make sure, I believe, that Black people are recognizing every piece of their own race as well, because I was definitely ignorant to a lot of things of Black culture, and that it never would have come up. Honestly, if this conversation wasn't happening, like racism, I go to an HBCU now. Like I went from Meridian Hill, St. Luke Middle School to Brebeuf to Holly Grove, Louisiana. And to say that I've seen the extremes on both ends, I've seen the most racist people, and I've seen Black people being mean to Black people for no reason other than having a superiority complex. So that's why I don't think that racism is different than any other superiority complex, and I don't think it should be treated as such. I just feel like if you at any point think that you're better than another human for any reason, I don't agree with that.
All right.
That's exactly what it is, the superiority complex, because race in itself is a social structure, it's a social construct made to divide, like she said, and also used to prevent other races that are not at the top of the hierarchy from receiving empowerment, from receiving tools to be able to climb. Racism is the inevitable outcome of race, of creating race.
Mm-hmm.
I want to chime in. I agree with everything you just said in terms of race being sort of a superiority complex. I think where race, to expound on that, I think where race is different, or racism is different than other superiority complexes or other forms of superiority, is it is sort of baked into our society. So therefore, we have a lot of institutions and a lot of situations where race is built into that, and you're maybe judged according to race and so forth. So I mean, so therefore it becomes more impactful in a negative way than, for example, some other sort of superiority complex, maybe people being judged by what they look like or what they wear or things like that. I think it has the power to be more impactful in a much more negative way. So I agree.
Thank
I
you,
also
Mr.
think
Holder.
it's learned too. That's what I've been talking to my son about, and the thing that I've seen throughout all the thing that's been most powerful as I've been trying to listen and see what people are saying is the truth of the fact that you're not born racist. You learn it. And I look at my son, who was born here in LA, but then spent his formative years in Williamsburg and Brooklyn, New York, with at one point 22 different nationalities represented in his kindergarten class of 14 between all the parents, to, now in LA, compared to my upbringing, where, I had one multi-racial friend, and almost anybody else in my entire high school, if they were a person of color, came from the Methodist home, the children's home in town. Totally different. Now, I was lucky that I had parents that were, understood, and my dad's first boss was a great Black man named John Compton. So it didn't occur to me until I started going around school and people saying these crazy things. But that's where, I'm so glad we're having this discussion. I'm so thankful that y'all invited me, because it's, as a dad, man, it's a big deal. And I was lucky enough to give the commencement address to DePaul University, my alma mater, last year.
Yeah.
One of the things I said, and this relates to you young folks that are here, is that I'm so thankful that the next generation seems to be so much more accepting of all different kinds of people, sexuality, race, all you guys are just, it's a different culture. So as we old folks are starting to move on, and I remember going to high school and getting in a fight with the guy on the way to baseball practice because he was saying some nonsense. You know, you guys, look, I'm not saying it's gone, but I'm saying I feel so much better about this moment and that you guys are leading it. What you guys are doing, you know, with the Black Women in Charge, you know, that is so important. So I appreciate that very much.
Indeed, indeed. Taylor, was you about to say something?
I was just saying thank you to Drew.
Oh, okay, cool. Morgan, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, kind of going off of what Drew said, like obviously like our experiences are going to be like different. Like I live in like the Carmel bubble. Like it's I mean it's a bubble. Like everything is just so like I guess like it's just like given to you, and I think racism is something that like originates from fear. I think that people are afraid of what like they don't know, or they don't like allow themselves to like experience like so many of my neighbors are white, like and they're like afraid to like go out of their comfort zone, which is silly. Like we learn by like interactions with people and everything. And like I agree, like you're not born with it. Like you learn, like I feel like you learn racism at the dinner table, but if we like start like teaching like about like love and not like hatred, and like we start like reteaching the way that like history like happened, instead of like with such like a negative connotation rather than like what we can learn from it, then like we can like teach like more love, and like racism like can slowly start to like dissipate, because like or like disappear, because I also agree like it is a superiority complex. But people like, I feel like a lot of people like group America and racism together, because like there is racism in other parts of like the world, but you hear a lot of racism like mainly in America.
And Morgan too, I guess, would understand this, but I think that at Rebuff in particular, we have a lot of people that are in the inner circle of our current White House administration. And so it's like you either hear the extreme right, or you just hear people that like would rather never even think that, or like say I'm colorblind. Like there's no like, they would rather make all the observations or make no observations. And they would rather never just take a chance to maybe look outside themselves and try to grow from it. It's like they either are completely ignorant to it or they just are a little on the far right side.
Exactly. Like people will like, even if like you have like a valid reason and like you're trying to reason with someone and like see their side, like also like see my side, like so many people are like, no, like I don't want to see your side, like your side's not right. But like if we take down those barriers, and like we like, that's the problem. Like it's like you're either like so far right wing, or like you're like complicit.
You don't even want to think about it. Yeah.
Like it doesn't affect you, but it affects everyone. Like we're all being affected by this in one way or another.
Yeah. And like you said, you know, in Carmel, they'll just remain in their bubble, but privilege in itself is a bubble. And we need to start having these conversations so that racism doesn't have to be taboo and a tense conversation for white people to have. It's a conversation we should be able to have like we are now. And like you were saying, oh my gosh, I was gonna include something, but I can't remember. If I remember, I'll put it in there.
Okay.
Please do. That's all right. That's all right.
It's to know that Black people can be in a bubble as well. I'd say for sure both of us are in that bubble. And it took 12 and a half hours distance from home to get out of that bubble. And I think if I had gone to any other school, I'd still be in that bubble. I would have no interest in activism or protest or anything, because it is when you get comfortable, you're just extremely comfortable, and nobody likes to be uncomfortable.
Now, I mean, I'd be one of the ones to admit that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be one of the ones to admit that, just from the standpoint of growing up as an athlete, and your bubble is in your sports. I mean, I played 3 different sports, so you went from one sport to the next sport to the next sport, and you never really interacted outside of the, you know, your teammate. And so then as you get older and older, and then even as you get into professional sport, you're still kind of in that bubble, because while we're here in America in the WNBA, we're playing, and then once we finish with the WNBA season, we go overseas. And I will even say, like what you said, Yasmin, is great, because that bubble, and even like not even, you had to get 12 and a half hours. If you would have asked me to have this conversation and to be able to have the conversation that we had last week, starting it off, if you would have asked me before George Floyd killing, I would have never felt comfortable enough. And even coming to the sit-in and being a part of it, like even if you would have asked me a few days before that if I would have been there, I probably would have said no. but literally getting outside now, I'm like, I'm all in. I am
All gas, no
in.
brakes. That's what I
And
told you.
you gotta have those. You gotta have those conversations. You gotta get outside of your own path. And then for me, like being an African-American woman in the position that I'm in, accepting the fact, not that I never accepted that I was Black, it's just because, you know, you grow up in a certain type of privilege that even sometimes you forget
You don't think you're vulnerable.
that there aren't people like you, and that you are kind of, you have a voice, meaning me, have a voice and a platform to help so many other people get their voices heard on a platform that's much higher than maybe some other people have. And that is what this is all about.
Hey, Tamika, how many times did you feel like you had to, especially like coming up Tennessee and then in your professional career, had to speak on behalf of all Black people? Like when you were around, like, did that happen? Like, I wondered about that.
You know, not, and maybe most of the teams that I was on were Black. Like you think about the athletes, look at our team. You know, we have a lot of African Americans, and while I might have been the leader and the captain for majority of the teams that I've been on, I never really felt like the pressure was on me. I think now in the position that I'm in now, and I wouldn't call it pressure, I would just call it more of a responsibility, because I am an athlete turned front office executive, and being able to use my voice for the young boys and girls that are coming up behind me. I mean, we had this question earlier on another panel, but when we saw Barack Obama, until we saw Barack Obama as our president, no Black kid, boy or girl, ever thought that they would be a president. But now all of a sudden you see Barack Obama and it's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so having somebody in front of you that now you can look at and say, like, I want to be like that. I want to be like Michelle Obama. I want to be like Barack Obama. I want to have, you know, the girls. I want all that. And the dog, even though I don't like dogs.
I think that Drew, I can speak to the point that Drew just made, or the question he just posed. It's absolutely true, and I can tell you, being in the media, you know, which is, you know, look, oftentimes you're going to find yourself being the only minority in the room, right? And that's what, I mean, that's true in a lot of arenas. You know, it's fine. It's not something that it's not something that I can't shoulder or anything, but it is a real thing, and I think there are a lot of instances where you might hear something that is okay, that's a little bit ignorant. Maybe I should chime in, right? But you know, is that my job? I don't know. You know, and so you find yourself in these awkward situations a lot of times. And I think sometimes it's probably more beneficial to step in rather than to, especially from a media standpoint, rather than to have some incorrect point of view put out to the viewers or the listeners or the readers. But at the same time, on a personal level, it's like, well, you know, is it really my problem? And so I think that goes back to experiences. And someone mentioned this earlier, and you know, bubbles and getting out of our bubbles. That's what I think is so important.
That's it. Definitely getting out of those bubbles, man. And so, guys, what I want you guys to take observation in this. I asked one question: how do you define racism? Did we all hear the same answer? No. Now, though, granted, I appreciate everybody's response, everybody's experiences, because we all come to experience it. However, we are now in a position in society where we have racism cornered. What do you mean by that, Mr. Saunders? Green-eyed bandit, whatever you want to call yourself. We have it cornered. It's played all of its cards. Okay. We can literally draw parallels to the past. If you don't learn from it, it's going to repeat itself. So what am I talking about? All right. Literally 3 months ago, we said we are all in this together against COVID. Okay. And we were all in this. Don't nobody go outside. Don't nobody do nothing. Who came knocking on the door? Okay. Let's go back some years back. Let's go back to 9/11. Stand strong. We are all in this together. And shortly after, we'll continue to keep knocking on that door. I'll go back a little bit further. World War II. Because the reason why I point to World War II is a direct response to those who said, Colin Kaepernick, who kind of really forewarned this generation of what's to come. And when he did that, it said it was a disrespect to the veterans. The veterans. And I felt like when I heard a disrespect to the veterans, I heard white veterans. Because certainly you couldn't be talking about disrespect. And that means black veterans too. What are you trying to talk about, Mr. Son? If we, World War II, we're all in this together. But when the black soldiers, the veterans, were treated less than the prisoners of war there, and then to actually come home back to America to be lynched and murdered in their uniforms. So when I say racism has played this card, it's played the fact that now you're ignorant. I don't want to be malicious, but what we're dealing with is every time in this country, when we say we're all in this together, hatred has come from the left and says, nah, I think I'm going to rewrite the contract. And not only am I going to rewrite the contract, I'm going to break the contract. What is the contract? Integrity. Ooh. If we're not going to follow the rules that are written, then there's no integrity in the law. There's no integrity in the justice. There's no integrity in the education system. And everything just keeps on lining up. So what I'm trying to get is that I want to be very clear to you guys and to our viewers that this is on every level. And Ms. Anderson, what you said, you didn't know, and it was interesting because it's interesting how racism makes itself plain to you, right? Because we're in a society where we value commodity over humanity. And so that we begin to chase commodity so much is that I got to get that bag. You know, I got to get the bag. I got to get the bag. It's always got to get the bag, but I got to get the bag over human sake. And I know somebody said love. You know, how do we bring that love? And because Drew, like you said, brother, it's being learned and it's being learned over again. So that fear keeps crawling down generation to generation. And I want to again just kind of make sure that we all kind of have this collective understanding that it is top down, because the next question is very vital to what we do next and why we do next. So the question is understanding that this is top down. We don't have the time tonight, but man, I maybe get a few other folks on here and we will sit here, we could break it down on level to level to level to level to level, top down. Based on what you said, based on what we talked about, guys, how do we teach this to the youth? Let's go.
I'd say that we need to start in school, and inside of our curriculum and education today, we don't learn about Black history. We don't really learn about racism. So if kids are not culturally competent and they don't understand the real history of America, they're never going to understand what Black people have to go through. If you grow up in your bubble and you're around all white people, never see a Black person, and all you hear about Black people is negative things, you're going to think it's true. If you don't learn about the history of Black people or the history of America or about what racism is, you're not going to really understand it. So until we teach it, until we have it in the school systems, these kids will never know until Martin Luther King Day or Black History Month, and that's just not enough. So I'd
Right.
say the education system, we need to put Black history inside of the school curriculum. It needs to be on tests and exams, not just on Martin Luther King Day. I think that's where we start. And then just having conversations with your friends. Have a white friend if you're Black, have a Black friend if you're white, have a Latino friend, have a Chinese friend, have a friend from different backgrounds and ethnic groups that can educate you, and you can educate them. So just, yeah.
But sometimes it's more than that. Like the one thing that's been most powerful to me is hearing from my Black friends that I've had for years, stuff that I've never heard before. Stories about my friend in Montreal who was called the N-word, and like specific stories that are seared into his brain that we never talked about. And I hear that, and that's the biggest thing for me, speaking as the 40-year-old white man, is understanding what the heck white privilege means.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that before. I didn't know what that meant. I get it. Well, I'm starting to get it now. And I think that's one of the things that we need to start teaching too. And maybe it's a chicken and egg thing. Once the next generation comes up and it's all, you know, that's going to go away. But that's the thing, you know, that video of the young man talking about all the things that his mom taught him before, you know, when he had to go out, you know, always keep your receipt, you know, keep your hands, like that stuff was powerful, man. That's nothing. I have no idea about that. I had no idea about that. And not in a real way anyway. And so that's the stuff that this time around, you know, I like what you said, Green Eye Bandit, about getting it cornered. I love that idea. And I hope it's true, because what I know for sure is that in my experience in my 40 years, I've never had this kind of conversation, not this level. This keeps happening. You know, I never understood the Kaepernick backlash in the beginning, but you know, it's funny to me how times can change in 4 years. You know, he'd be a benefit to any team now, as after being a pariah for 4 years. I speak in sports metaphors because I love it, but that's a great example. And the leaders in my industry, you know, I did a movie with Chadwick Boseman, and it was really hard to do because the scene was I was a crooked cop. And we pulled him over, and then he gets out and we chase him, and then we beat him, and it was excruciating. Those are, as an actor, as an artist, you know, it was to serve the purpose of the movie. It wasn't gratuitous. It was real, but it was hard to do. You know, and I talked a lot to him about that. And he was just about to start Black Panther at that point. So anyway, I'm diverging on lots of different topics. My point is that there are things about this moment in time that feel so different than any other time that I'm aware of.
We'll put it like this, Drew. Like I said, when those moments were all this together, COVID-19 has literally killed us. It's killed everyone on the planet in terms of every race, every shade. It's touched this whole planet. It does not care. But then for this to happen right smack in the middle, is like, you don't even, like, are you working for COVID? I mean, what's going on? It's just, and COVID is like, hold up, man, that's not where I was going with this. Like, I want you all, but like, so it's like in the middle of you know, we can do this together. We got to do this for humanity's sake. Not even before it happened with Trajan, with George Floyd, with Breonna Taylor, you know, and it's just like, geez. On top of getting the bottom end of the stick with COVID, where high numbers of people of color, you know, when it hit, nobody, you know, that came out, but nobody wanted to believe it. And it's like, when it first came out, people were talking about Black folk were immune to it. But then it's like, no, then it just started happening quickly. And then on top of that, it's just like a constant matter. It's like, it does not matter what we go through. As a people, as humanity, you continue to let this block our progress as humans. We should already have Star Wars ships by now. But how many geniuses have been killed? What would have Emmett Till done? You know, to make, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's like I said, racism is cornered. You can't move. We see you everywhere.
I got a question, if you don't mind, for the young folks here. Because I overheard a Zoom class right after the beginning of the riots with my son's third grade class, and I was in the other room kind of eavesdropping, and the teacher asked them all, you know, how they felt. And it was a lot of frustrated, sad, confused. Like, you know, these 9-year-olds didn't understand, like, it's almost the whole concept of like, I think they knew what was happening, but it was like, why is this like this rate? So I wonder for you guys that are, you know, are in high school or have just coming up in through college, what was it like growing up in your generation? I mean, was it, and in Indiana, I'm assuming you guys went to Brebeuf, right? So I don't know, you Christmas Addicts, you said. So like, I'm really curious because, you know, I grew up in Indiana too, in a very different kind of situation, but what was it like for you guys in this generation?
Well, at St. Luke, I was the only Black girl in my class out of 60. And I never felt racism per se until it was like second semester of 8th grade. And it was about Barack Obama. And we were in history class, US history, and he called Obama a monkey. And it was like confusing because in my house, Obama was like the Messiah. So I just had never heard literally anyone even kind of talk about the Barack Obama and like a halfway negative connotation. So I wasn't really sure where he was going with it. And then he elaborated and elaborated some more. And the teacher just let him keep elaborating. And then everyone's like looking around, nodding his head. And I'm like, oh, so this is what it is. Like, this is slavery. Like, this is racism. I'm pretty sure like this is it right here. And so I made a comment and he threw the desk. We had the desk that like were on the chairs, like connected. Do you know what I'm talking about? And he picked up the desk and threw it down the hallway. And to me, that was his ancestors coming out of him, just as my ancestors now are coming out of me in these marches and 5 a.m. nights trying to plan like ridiculous events in 7 days. But I mean, it truly is history repeating itself if you let it. I literally, my first Black class per se was last semester. And I never felt like I was missing. I didn't know I was missing anything. And now I get it. Like, I get why his whole spirit literally, he was having an intrinsic battle with his own self, just by nature of me being allowed to speak back to him. And that I've never seen someone like actually implode like that over a topic like Barack Obama. So anyway, that was really the first and last time that for me too, I have to admit, I'm not very observant of my surroundings. So I'm sure that I have had like other times. I'm sure she could tell you if I have, and I just kind of forget about it. But that was like the first time when I was like, wow, people are really out here like hating other people in 8th grade.
Okay. You know? So to Drew's point is like that learned behavior is like, what do you need? Like, what does that hatred do for you?
It was so confusing.
You know, for me, growing up, I was in Pike Township. So I went to New Augusta and I was surrounded by a diverse group of, you know, minorities and some white people. But being surrounded by such a diverse group of people, I didn't actually get to realize that racism existed.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that racism existed until I went to high school and I was at Brebeuf and I was surrounded by
Mike Pence's family.
Yes. And
it was tough.
And that time there, you know, it made me really realize that like you're saying, like they need to learn history, but it's not just history they need to learn. They need to learn modern day disparities because all people like, okay, for I guess the ignorant white people I've met, the privileged white people I've met that can't see past their privilege, I think the missing piece is that they need to realize that everyone is created equal, but currently that is not the case. We do not receive equal rights. And until then, we need to be focusing on equity and trying to make things equitable for everyone. So then one day we can be equal and have the same platform.
Like before they can even think to include us in the space, they have to think that we're deserving of the space, equally as deserving as they are as the space.
And then realize that we don't have that.
We don't have it because they think we do. They think that because we had one Black president, they legitimately think that everything is okay.
Yep.
So I want to interrupt real quick.
Real quick. Just I want to make sense. What we're going to do, we're going to ask very specific questions. All right. So what I'm going to do, I want to
hold on real quick though. I do want to hear.
Yeah,
I know Stephen had something to say. I know Taylor had something, and Morgan been trying to get in. She been like,
yeah, okay. Let's roll it.
So let's go there real quick. We'll start with Stephen or Morgan, one or the other.
All I was going to say was what you two young ladies are speaking to in terms of just, you know, ignorance. People don't like that word ignorance, but it just means you just don't know, right? You don't. Right. A lot of those interactions you had are with people who just don't know any better. And I think that's what the education should come from the angle, or be taught from the angle of why it matters, right? Not just like, okay, there's Martin Luther King, and just learn facts about George Washington Carver. Like, okay, those are great, but like, let's teach this generation about race in a way that's applicable to real life. So why does it matter? It matters because it creates these disparities. It matters because it impacts self-esteem of these young Black men who are in our communities killing each other. It matters for a lot of different reasons. So I think that's how we need to attack it. But I mean, I'm not a teacher. I'm not in that role. But I think that's a message that I hope gets across.
Hey Morgan, what do you have on your mind?
So I went to Orchard, and so like I'm so thankful to have gone to Orchard because like racism, like it was talked about like a lot, like at Orchard, and it was like uncomfortable for some kids in our class, like to like go to that topic. But really, like 8th grade year, I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Barry, and I like wrote this down because I like did not want to forget this. He taught with like such passion and conviction, but like he taught with like his experiences as like being like a human being, and it was so like enlightening and impactful. And like his teaching style was like so progressive, and he like let everyone like speak what was on their mind, but it was more like current events for like history class, like so he was really making sure like we were aware of what was going on. And like he taught me like how to use like my like white privilege like for good. Like he first introduced me to my white privilege because like being an 8th grader, like I didn't understand what white privilege was. And then he like introduced me to it and like taught me to like use it for good, like use my voice like when I'm in like the community and like I see like someone is like being like put down, or like they're not, they're being torn down, like use my like privilege, and instead of like tearing people down and throwing myself like on a pedestal like half of the like white people do, like putting myself in the community and like helping people, because like I have a voice that like people are going to listen to, and it's so dumb that people are going to listen to me over anyone else, and like that's the problem. But like if people start to use their voice and like share the microphone, and like that's what I was taught. And so like it just, I think that's what like needs to start happening, and it needs to happen at like a young age. Like it needs to be like in the curriculum. You need to understand what's going on in current events, and not like going home and like your parents telling you like a side of the current events and twisting it. Like it needs to be like hardcore facts, not like, oh, like did you see what happened on TV today, like, and switching it. Like it needs to be like something, like textbooks need to be rewritten. Like it needs to start from like ground zero and just like be rebuilt.
And
That's
it's
what
so
it feels
sad.
like. That's definitely what it feels like.
Yeah, I've had so many. I probably had more white classmates than black classmates by this point, and I think the majority of them are literally like Morgan. But the ones that are not somehow have the loudest voices. Somehow they're the ones that the media report on. They're the ones that are on TV looting and everything. But when I tell you 80% of rebuff is like Morgan, and then the 20% that's different are the ones that get all of the attention in the media. And it's just like how they stereotype black people badly. And I just feel like if they were, just like she said, to switch the narrative and let people know, like, not all white people are bad, because that's a problem too. Black people don't want to listen to white people that are enlightened because they feel like they can't possibly be enlightened, like they're not able to be enlightened. And when you start, just, it's division. It's consistent division between good people, bad people, good white people, good black people, like all the different labels and categorizations that we put on people so early on. Like we're in high school and we couldn't even be free there. Like, when are we going to be free? Because I'm tired. Everybody's just tired of being tired at this point, and not being able to speak your mind in certain spaces because you feel like someone's going to be offended and they might have more power than you when you're literally 14 years old. Like you're a freshman in high school. That's not it at all.
No, especially because like that 20%, like they'll say something in class and you'll just be like, oh,
everyone's looking at them crazy. Like they're not the majority. They're
I
just
had some of those kids in my class this year, and they like kept going, and you would be like, okay, like the teacher would be like, we're done. And he'd be like, well, I'm not done. And you'd be like, okay.
Someone said that before, people had trouble grappling the question like does racism exist?
Yeah.
But people today have trouble grappling that question also, and that's the crowd we need to reach out to. Yeah, because it's scary, and it's like maybe if they could even understand that it's very real and it impacts my life in so many aspects of it, and it impacts Yasmin's life and every other Black friend they have, or the Black culture they like to use. All of that is impacted by racism that's very real. But I mean, I remember my junior year, I was taking a moral decision making class, and one of the students was like, racism isn't real. And I really respect my teacher for this, because she would not move on from the topic until he understood that it is real. She would stay on the topic for a week. Yes.
I wanted to go back to Drew's question, what it was like growing up in Indiana as an African American. So for me, the experience was different. I was never like in a bubble or sheltered. I had like a white side of my family and a Black side of my family. So I could see the difference between white America and Black America. And I went to public schools all growing up. I grew up in Pike Township, so it was diverse. But in high school, in middle school, I went to Crispus Attucks. It's an IPS school, inner city. So just for me, seeing the difference between an IPS school and a charter school or a private school really showed me the inequalities and differences in just Indiana. Just how at an IPS school, we can't afford decent food. We can't afford laptops. We can't afford teachers for like core classes would quit, and then that make me have a substitute teacher in a math class, and now I don't really understand algebra. So then the test scores are lower, and just all of the disparities inside of the school system. It was just my experience. And then the microaggressions going to an IPS school, it'd be like, oh, you're so articulate to go to IPS school, or oh, you speak so well to go. You go to Crispus Attucks, like really? I'm so surprised. Like there's not many people like you, and just was like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, why do you put us all in the same category because we were an IPS student? That was my experience.
And I think for a lot of us, you know, like I'm kind of the same as you, Taylor, you know, like growing up through most of my life. I mean, my father played in the NBA and we moved around a lot. We were in a lot of like in the NBA bubble that we just kind of bounced around. When my father finished playing, we kind of bounced around a little bit more. But it wasn't until my junior year in high school that when I moved down to Duncanville, Texas from the suburbs up in Chicago, that I realized I was like, whoa, because kind of like Yasmin, we had about 3 Black girls, maybe 3 Black guys, and it was kind of like, I don't want to date that guy, but that was the environment we were in. And when I moved to Duncanville, Texas, I mean, it really was, we went from being a minority to being a majority. And so really navigating that space and getting made fun of because why do you talk like that? Why do you look like that? Why are you this? Yeah, why, you sound white. And I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? Does that mean educated? Does that mean, tell me what that means. And so really,
and there's so many different superiority complexes even within Black people. And that's why I said that racism is no different, because I can honestly say I felt more singled out, quote unquote, whatever that means, by Black people more often than any white person ever has, because I just think that humans need at all costs, at all times, to feel better than someone. And if the only people around to choose from to feel better than are your own people, then that's just how it pans out. I mean, and some people would rather just say that you're different and you don't belong than say maybe you're an inspiration, or maybe they like a quality about you and they want to learn how to do it, for example. And that's where a lot of self-confidence comes in, because if you kill off someone's self-confidence just based on how they look, then how are they for the next however many years of their life supposed to actually function properly in society when people that are supposedly just like them don't even agree with them, don't even accept them for who they are? People's parents tell them that they don't blend in with their own family and things like that, and it's wrong. It's a false superiority complex. That's all it is.
Yeah. So as we kind of move on, kind of where Eric was going, he'll be back in a minute. His internet kind of messed up on him, but I do want to we had like some specific questions. I want this to continue doing the dialogue, but I do want to kind of get to some of the questions that we had. I want to check in with Mike real quick though. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing? How you feeling about the conversation?
I'm listening in very, very deep. So just checking in and soaking up as much as I can.
All right. All about the
Looks
education.
good, dude. That's really impressive.
Really good.
Thank you.
So let's start with Stephen. We'll start with you, all right? And for the audience, we sent these questions kind of beforehand, but as you listen to this conversation, and I know you have kids, what do you think is the most important thing that you've gotten from your work? As you talked a little bit about the journalist and being able to move around, now your current job with the Athletic. What do you think has been or will be most important for you to teach your kids?
I think that one thing, so first, to answer the question, I'll give you a little bit about my background. So my background was, I grew up, we were not what I would consider poor, right? We were working class. We lived in a predominantly minority neighborhood. you know, it was one of those neighborhoods that used to be all white, you know, back in the day, and then, you know, got a little more diverse, and then people moved to nicer neighborhoods, whatever. But the point is, so I had a much different upbringing than my kids, because I went from that neighborhood to a school in an affluent suburb, and we, I guess, got bused over there to that other school. And this is in 1981. I started kindergarten. I'm getting old, but it sounds like a long time ago, but it's not a long time ago, right? 1981. And we were one of the first classes of kindergarten kids to go to that affluent school. So you could imagine shock when we got there. It was like, oh my goodness. You know, I mean, the school went from not being diverse at all to being extremely diverse, like overnight. So that was, so my experience was different. Like I had, you know, you had to navigate that even as a young child. You knew, like, okay, I'm different than these kids, not just skin color, economically I'm different. Our backgrounds are different. So much about us are different, right? So you pick up on that stuff even as a young kid. So related to my kids, you know, are we rich? No, but like they have a different upbringing than I had. They've been exposed to more things. But I also think that it's extremely important. I've always made this a priority. Always raise them, especially kids, I think, who are minorities. This is important. Raise them in a way that they understand the world on a realistic level. I don't think it does them any good to tell them the world is this place, this sort of mythical place where nothing bad happens. Like, no, like, you know, like bad things happen. People will judge you by the color of your skin. Not often, hopefully, but it could happen. Be prepared for it. Perceptions, all of those things. You have to prepare them for all of those things. But you have to balance that with also not giving them a built-in excuse, right? Don't tell me, oh, you can't be successful because you got to overcome all those things. Well, guess what? You got to overcome it. That's your problem, you know? And so you got to really keep it real. And I think that goes for all facets of raising them. Keep it real in terms of what they're going to face, and keep it real in terms of what the expectations are. You don't get a pass because you're a Black kid in America, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So you have this balancing act. It's a very interesting step-by-step process, and every situation is its own little individual situation you navigate.
So Stephen, how did your parent talk to you about it?
So it was interesting. So my parents, what's interesting is my parents actually are from the Caribbean. So I got so for them, race was weird for them, right? Because so they're from Trinidad and Tobago, right? Tiny island. No one in this chat can find it on a map, I guarantee you. But go to Venezuela and turn right. It's off the coast. But anyhow, everybody's a minority. You know what I mean? So you come from a country or a place where everybody's a minority. It was a British colony, like a lot of the Caribbean, but they're self-governed now, right? So when you go from that, you come to the United States, and you have this wholly different dynamic. They didn't live through the civil rights era here, right? So it was a little bit different for them. So they were trying to figure it out too, I think, you know? But it's interesting. So I was raised, I grew up as a Black kid in America, whereas they didn't have that experience. So it was actually interesting. Like they didn't go to a school when they were young like me that was predominantly white. They never had that experience. That was not something they could sort of guide me through. But I think, you know, at the same time, they're perceptive enough to understand that these are things that you're going to face. And I think my parents were kind of like me. I mean, like my dad, you know, he was very honest about things that he had encountered or things that he's seen. He'd be like, look, what did they say? Okay, well, this is probably what he meant. You didn't pick up on it because you're too young, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that is kind of the same approach that I've taken. You know, it was never dominant. Okay, it was never a dominant topic, right? Like, did you face racism today? You know, we didn't come home and have a talk about racism at the end of every day. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that serious. But you know, it was acknowledged when it happened, and I think that is healthy.
Thank you, Stephen. So Drew, I'm gonna throw the same question to you that I just threw to Stephen, and I know you talked a little bit about it already, but you know, with everything that you have going on through the acting and the different movies and shows and all that stuff, and moving around, you know, the one thing that I have, obviously how we met even at the Pacers game and how our relationship has grown, but your son, like the way that you put him out there in the way that you like, just your relationship with him, watching y'all videos, the Bathroom Chronicles and all that. What do you think has been most important in your journey with him? And especially like, how have you guys talked about everything that's going on right now?
It's a good question. And you know, I was thinking about that too when we met at the Pacer game, and you know, kind of, which I think is the root of why I asked you the question I asked you before, because you're so good at what you do in terms of in this new phase of your career. This is not, I know this is not supposed to be a like I love Tamika moment, but I've always respected the hell out of you, and you know, you do such a good job going around. I watch you going around that arena talking to everybody, you know, all these people. You know, you are quite an ambassador, whether you like it or not, and that's really important. And I respect the hell out of that. You know, and my son's a big fan, obviously, and
yeah, we're gonna get him a Fever jersey for that.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. I actually went on eBay to try and find one my size, a Catchings jersey, because I'm gonna wear the hell out of it.
We're working on it, man.
I'm gonna find one anyway. So look, like I said, he's lucky that he's been, you know, that he's been raised in a couple of very diverse places, but you know, it is a conversation. I don't know, Stephen, if it was you, but I read something about and I'm sorry that I can't remember which Colts player it was, and it was really profound to me because he was talking about, and please tell me if you remember, if you know what I'm talking about. He was talking about how he was talking to one of the coaches, a white coach, who was like, "Oh yeah, man, we've just been putting the Disney Channel on repeat, so you know, because we can't watch the news." And the guy who was black, the player, said, "Well, I don't have that luxury," and that was powerful. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to remember. It may not have been a story I wrote, but I so relate to that. I feel that. I feel that absolutely.
And I think that's another thing that's hit home to me throughout this whole thing, which has been a profound couple of weeks. You know, of what I'm going to teach him and what I'm hoping he'll learn. You know, I don't want to overpower him at 9 years old, but he's understanding, you know, is that we have to be an ally. And what does it mean to be an ally? How do we stand up? It's a little bit of what y'all have been talking about before, standing up. There have been plenty of moments, you know, where I didn't speak up when I should have. And it's hard, you know, people don't like to be confronted. People don't want to have that confrontation. It's a lot easier in my bubble here in Los Angeles than it would be if I still lived in Lebanon, Indiana, which I love. I love my hometown. There's really great people there. But, you know, I've been dealing a lot with the All Lives Matter crew and being able to try and educate people on why that's nonsense and how, you know, we need to do better, and we need to and that's the stuff that I want him to know. I want him to stand up, you know, and it's tricky because, you know, you're basically, you know, putting your kid into a position where you guys know as well as I do, fights break out. You know, there can be, you know, this is like desks can be thrown, you know, I totally can see that situation that you described before. But it's important. Like, what else can we do? As especially, you know, with our white privilege, we got to use it in the right way. And that's what I want him to know. And that's what we're trying to teach him. My wife's from England, and her parents were both born in refugee camps. They were Polish. So there's a whole nother, he has a whole another part of his family that, you know, like you were talking about before, Yasmin, about there's a whole other side of how we relate. And they were immigrants. And so they had that experience of that. So all that is to say that, you know, we just keep trying to talk about the stuff that's sometimes tricky to talk about, but even more importantly, and this is true not just for my son, but everybody, is to lead by example. There's no better way, in my opinion, than to lead.
It's interesting you said that, because earlier a few of us were on another call with Ann Paris, and he did kind of like the state of Black America in Indiana. But Miles Turner, actually, somebody gave him an analogy.
Right here. That's Miles.
Right there. Yep. I don't have him. Sorry. All lives matter. And somebody was talking, you know, they explained to him that all lives matter. It's like, all right, there's 5 houses that are burning, and 1 house is on fire. You don't say all the houses matter right now. You're not saying like, we got to save every single house. You're not watering plants at 1 house while this house is burning down. You're tending to that 1 house. And that's really kind of the same thing when you start talking about all lives matter. there's all these different races that are a part of it, and they all matter. But in this point in time right now, this house right here, the Black Lives, that's what's burning down. And how do we all turn our attention? You see the fire truck come up. They're not coming up and watering all 5 houses. They come up and they water the one house, and they take care of that one house. And then all 4 houses pitch together to help make that one. I mean, like when he was talking about, I'm like,
Yep.
genius.
Yeah. I know there's a guy that I posted on my Instagram that there's a comic that's actually from like 2016. This guy, Chris Straub, who's a friend of a friend, did that comic strip. And I don't know that he came up with it, but it's if you go to my Instagram, it's there. And that was powerful to me. The other powerful one was because so many of these, these All Lives Matter people are Christians, is the comic you may have seen of
Wait, I'm a Christian.
Yeah. So yeah, me too. But the Jesus going down, there's the one sheep down the side of the hill, and he's going to get that one. But behind him are all of the other sheep, but all sheep matter. Like it's right there. What would Jesus do, y'all?
What would Jesus do?
He would stop and help the Samaritan woman. That's what
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I'm gonna turn to my 3 ladies over here to talk about Black women in charge. And you guys, I mean, we've had this has been a great conversation. So first off, thank everybody for coming on. Eric is back. Hello, Eric. Welcome back. We love having you back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say.
Go ahead, Eric. Yeah, I hear you twice.
Sorry about that. I wanted this to say to you, Drew, when he said use the white privilege to help. And I think, I think then it has to be an aim. You use the white privilege to the goal so that you don't have to. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, that privilege is still built on the oppression of others. And then so you too have to be liberated from the pain of what is that. And that's what I think a lot of white people don't understand. It's like when we're asked, are you okay? I have to ask, are you okay? Mm-hmm. What about this is not hitting your heart?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like to the point where it's like we can really truly hold hand in hand. Yeah. And love and this, that, and the other. I was like, because it's like, how do you look at this and not, because like you said, brother, if some next person asks you, Drew, do this for me, and you tell them the Green Eye Bandit tell you to do somebody says all lives matter to you, you tell them dead in the eyes. I say, okay, prove it.
I like it. I like it.
Like you're saying, using your white privilege and the access you have to that group of all lives matter people, I think that's so crucial because honestly, for one, I mean, my feed on like all of my social media platforms, it's filled of like-minded people. Mm-hmm. So I don't see the all lives matter and things like that. But not only do you see with it and deal with it, but you get to address the issue without you being their enemy, because for some reason they think Black is their enemy. But you can address that issue with your privilege and maybe they'll hear your voice a little better. So I think that's great that you continue to try and say something.
And to your point, I think it was Drew that made the point about Christianity. I have a very diverse religious background, I would call it, but it's interesting to see that when the time is right, people will use their religion as an excuse to do just about anything. And to that point as well, it's not just racism that people use that they use religion to justify. It's also things like homophobia, Islamophobia. So when I see people that I know are openly homophobic, when I see people that I know are openly Islamophobic at our protest and like coming out to us like, oh my God, I love what you're doing for the movement. It's like, but you're not really down for the whole movement though. Yes. You're down for the maybe not murdering piece, but you're not down for the preservation of all human life piece. And to us, that's the goal that we're trying to get across. Yes, right now, of course, Black Women in Charge is fighting police brutality because that's the
That's the
house that it's on
focus.
fire.
It's not okay.
But when this is over, we still have to work on all of the different aspects of humanity, even white transgender people, even Asian lesbian people. It comes to a point where humanity needs to be the focus, and we do need to eventually be off racism because it's wasting time. It's wasting valuable time that we could be using to, once again, whoever said we should have spaceships. Yeah, we should have spaceships, but people can't bond over their like-mindedness, and instead they're letting physical features consistently divide them.
So I like that. And let's go to that. So you guys started Black Women in Charge. What have been some of the highs and lows through your activism and just kind of like even the vision? How did you six get together, come up with this idea?
So getting together, it actually started because one of my friends, Langdon, she's one of the six. And I was just calling her to see where she was going that day, what we were about to do. If we were about to go to Broad Ripple, what was up? And she's like, I'm going to a protest. And I was like, for what? Like, I was studying that whole day. I was like in a chemistry hole. And she's like, I'm going to protest. And I was like, protest what? And she's like, the people that are being murdered. And I was like, oh, like, I guess I'm going to then. Like, I wasn't really sure what was going on, who really was being murdered, how we were going to protest this, but I was like, that seems like something I'd like to be part of. So Nia Hayat, her best friend, Taylor posted it on her feed, and we know her just from forever, soccer, when we were like 4 and stuff. And so we all just went, and we were just like, this is lit. Like, it was my first protest ever. So I was like, this is interesting. Hayat ended up leading the entire thing with like chants I'd never heard before. And Langdon was just like all over Instagram with it. And there were like 20 people, but they were like, it was lit though. It was on the circle. And then she got in contact with the girl that was in charge of that march the next day, and then put me and Sadia and I, my little sister, it's also in Black Women in Charge, in contact with all of them. We were like, we're having a protest. Like, we're going to go level 10. It's going to be bomb. And we were like, 500 people are going to come. And we were going to have it at the War Memorial. And then 4,500 people showed up. And we had no idea what to do with ourselves because we planned for 500. And we were like, we're not the Black Panthers. We were like, we don't know where to go with this. We were like, peace, nonviolence, peace.
We focused in on peace and, really trying to be clear in our message with our chants, like what we want. Because I will say that what really empowered my voice to come out on this topic is being at the protest on 62nd in Michigan, right after Drejon Reed was murdered. And, being there, his family was there, and it was a small protest, but you could really feel the energy. And that's when I knew, like, after the protest, we walked to our destination. And I'm like, this is too close to home. Like, I shouldn't be able to walk to where I'm going. And why is this still happening? Because the last protest I was at was for Trayvon Martin when I was 12. And that's that moment when it sort of all hit me. And I'm like, this is much more than right now. Like, this is something we actually need to change so that it does not keep happening. And so it's really inspired me to do a lot of work with like the legislative changes and just leading the protest and working with all these amazing Black women.
And that's one thing that I would say sets Black Women in Charge apart. And when we initially got together, we sat down and we definitely made the delineation of this, of like, are we a protesting organization or are we an organization that wants to make systematic change? And for us, the easiest, quickest way in one summer to make that systematic change was legislation. And then we made up like a bunch of things that we agreed with. We found an anonymous list of demands, and we were like, we are working on these demands until there are none, until all of them are off the list. And what progress have we made? Like, Taylor, do you want to talk anything about like body cams? Like, we've had a ton of progress so far.
I'll talk about my involvement in Black Women in Charge. So for me, it was the Drejon Reed case. I live in Meridian Kessler area, so that was right 3 minutes from my house. So once that happened, I was out there protesting like every day downtown, and then it kind of died off. And I think we didn't forget about it, but people stopped caring. But then with George Floyd, we're like, okay, we're out here again. So then when we all met downtown, we're like, we have to do something to make actual change. So just organizing all these other protests afterwards. But with the legislative change, Andre Carson proposing a bill like to
Body cams.
body cams.
He's been advocating for the Justice and Policing Act 2020.
We're also studying, she is breaking down the entire use of excessive force policy, because that to us is the most subjective piece of legislation I've ever seen in my whole life. And it's completely disgusting to say that someone can literally have as many options as they do in the process leading up to murdering someone.
Can I just say very, very quickly, I just want to say I said at the opening that I was really heartened by what the young people are doing, because it's weird. Like, I think revolution kind of skipped my generation. Like, I never went to a protest. I was never in the streets. Right? You know, I don't know why. I mean, it wasn't like things were great. We had a lot of issues, but like, you know, I watched the '92 Rodney King riots on TV, but you know, like, no, we never did anything. And so the previous generation before me was in the civil rights era, right? So like, they went through that. So anyway, my point is, I think bringing it back it can only be a good thing. So I'm glad that it starts with the youth, man, because you guys are the ones that are gonna make the difference in the future. I mean, I'll be gone, you know, or I'll be too old.
Hope
Nobody
not.
gonna listen to me.
I hope not.
Just to say to you, Steve, man, y'all was, you know, that was you came up in the '90s, I can imagine. And so, man, yeah, I think, you know, that real world, I think you guys, the '90s was that strange middle where everything began to merge.
Our revolution was like hip hop and like, right. You know, we were defiant in our own way, but it wasn't like you guys are. We weren't in the streets, but we were defiant culturally.
You showed up for the culture.
Yeah.
And I think that too was you guys your generation made a revolution in terms of how you identify yourself. And so I don't want you to think that you didn't do this per se, but I believe that you guys began to thread the elements that kind of got us to this point to where we can kind of, you know, because you think about it, man, we was rocking HBCU shirts.
Yeah. There was a lot of consciousness in the '90s. I would agree with that. Yeah, there was.
And then, like you said, for us to be able to draw the parallels with Biggie and Pac to Malcolm and Martin, you know, you experienced it. That was your time, you know, and so, as we move forward to the future, and it was, you know, great. It's really great, you know, just hearing how Black Women in Charge came to be. And literally, guys, man, like I said, we've all impacted. Like, I was literally riding my bicycle when I heard the shots for Jay John Reed. You know, that's how close I was to it. And, you know, so I applaud you, because you can't tell people, well, what was you doing back then? You get to it when you get to it. Welcome to it. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm glad you see that this is a lifelong thing. So definitely pace yourself. Because now the next step is, again, drawing the parallels to the past and figure out how you add on to what you guys are currently doing so that you don't run into the same mistakes.
And the good thing, I guess, you said like the highs and lows, the biggest high for me so far, and probably for our whole organization, has just been the amount of resources that have been dumped on us every single day in and day out since we started. And it really just gives us hope in humanity. Like, all these people show up. They're not coming to see us. They don't know us like as individuals or like celebrities or anything. They just know that like we're physical representation of the Black Lives Matter movement. And for them to come out like that consistently in any level of heat, it means to me that they've been caring and they just needed a space to show that they did. So we're going to keep giving them the space to at least halfway like show their support, donate all the water in the world. I mean, we have people driving like 40 minutes away to drop off water at our protest and leave.
Oh yeah.
Like, not even stay for the protest.
And
that was one of my roles.
It was awesome though. I mean, even just being there, and I want to transition to Morgan so we don't run out of time, but even having been a part of that, it was just beautiful. Like, I came back, I took my little nephew, my sister and my little nephew and part of my Bible study group, and just being amongst so many like-minded people of all different races, of all different sexual orientation, of all, like just gender, I mean, just all together. And at first I was like, okay, like I just want to come and I want to stay on the outskirts and kind of see what's going on. We ended up right in front of the stage, sitting on the grass by the tree. You know, Amp was looking for it. I was like, we're just mixed in with everybody. I don't want to be a celebrity today. I want to just be. I just want to be. And that's it. I just want to be.
So Morgan, Um, here's the thing. Like I said, to me, I'm like I said, I'm very transparent. You are, how old are you, Morgan? If you don't mind?
I'm 17.
17.
Yeah.
17. And I know, I don't know if you got it for friends or you heard it, but the whole I'm white, what can I do? You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to do because and I feel like your role is so there's no words really kind of describing in that it's one heck of a middle that you're in.
Yeah.
And so being a youth leader, knowing that you have that responsibility, knowing that you feel the way that you feel, what are some things that you've been thinking about in terms of how do I actually operate? How do I actually what difference do I make? How has that hit you?
Well, I think that when this like first started, we have like a friend group chat, and like I like texted in it, and I was like, does anyone like notice like what's going on? And there was like silence. Like my text was read, and like that was it for like a good like 40 minutes. And then like we talked about it a little bit. Like it was like very brief though, skimmed over. And then I was like sitting there because I was at my grandparents' house when like all the riots started happening, and I was like I want to do something. Like I don't want to just like sit back and like watch it happen. So I wrote this blog post. And it's titled like you should be outraged, because like everyone should be outraged. Like this like is outrageous. Like this is like nothing like I've ever seen before. And I was like reading like Teen Vogue, and they had a whole bunch of like ways to like help and like protest, petitions to sign, like do it peacefully. And so I started like writing, and I wrote down all these like steps, like things that I've been trying to do, like things that I read about that are amazing, that like people are doing, petitions you can sign, like ways you can help. And I linked them because like if they don't want to read my stuff, like I know I don't have a ton of readers, and like they'll read someone else's stuff because like they have like ethos behind them. And so I felt like it was important. So then I sent the link to my blog post in the chat, and I was like share it like if you can, like just as like another like resource. No one responded. I was like, okay. So I think that like now like we're more open about talking about it, but like because like it is such a middle position, I have friends who like don't talk about it because that's the way that they were raised, and I have friends who are so invested in it because they're living in it. And it's so like I think it's important for me to keep them in the middle, to like bridge like the gap like in between the super far like right wing and like the people who live it. Like I talked to my friend like Courtney Kelly, and I was like, what can I do? Like how can I help? Like I want like ways to help. And like because I won't like ever be able to experience what you guys are experiencing because of like how I was like how society views like my color. And it's so unfortunate that like society doesn't view us all on an equal playing field. So like I just want to know like ways that like I can be of help for everyone else around us.
Well, Morgan, and I'll tell you this, and like I said, I'll tell anybody, there's an interesting opportunity for you to, in terms of how you research. Okay, like I said, it's that because like I said, what do I begin to help? Then you have to ask yourself, and I think we touched this, like you hit on it. This is definitely a human issue. I'm not saying it. This is not an undercover way of saying all lives matter, but this is like to the human issue. So it's like, no, how do I help? No, I have to help.
Yeah.
This is literally killing humanity. The negligence, the lack of competence, and the fact that we're operating in this. And so I think this is just my opinion, is just like you're in that position to really, again, drive in that value piece. And again, like we said, when you use the privilege to actually get in positions and see things that typically most people of color will not see, that will shock you. You got to have a straight, stone cold face. It's like, it's you have to constantly keep your head on the swivel and know what environment you're in at all times. How you organize is key, because essentially is this: when I say I always draw the parallels, this is those moments when you have to remember the Underground Railroad. It operated on discretion. Discretion don't necessarily mean secrets. It just means how you coordinate.
Exactly.
And how you stick to that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like, because we live living in a time where we realize, like, did anybody else watch Hunger Games? It's like, how was I was like, nobody's drawn this parallel to Hunger Games. It's like, and then we act surprised when it happens for real. And so, yeah, and I say that because I'm seeing powerful women on this call tonight, powerful men too, powerful young women on this call. And we have to, as women, I'm sorry, but you have to find, we have to definitely know what history says to be aware of that, you know, because a lot of times, you know, what Black women in charge are doing, they're doing. But Morgan needs to know how to connect with Black women in charge.
Yes.
Morgan, and we have to cooperate, right?
Yes.
And understanding what has happened in the past, because the relationship between the Black woman and the white woman is one that has to also be realized, and one that has to be mended. Because there's a lot, and so I think as you go forward, every other ladies going forth with your education. So again, because the average person that's saying all lives matter, the average person that's saying or retaliates with hatred, does not have a formal education as it pertains to race as it's learned, and has no true connection or context to as it pertains to America and the makeup, because it hasn't been taught. And me doing research and studying this, like, it is truly horrifying, truly horrifying. But when you think about the times, what's going on right now, we have to remain focused, because we're numb. There's a lot of horror going on right now, horror. And so, because of video games and programming this, that, and another, we just kind of look at it and, you know, hey, it's just TV. So, but I think everybody in here has the opportunity to really bring this to the forefront. And I'm just glad to just be on this call. And I'm just flipping through, and I'm sorry I had a Teddy Riley moment. I should have never talked stuff about Teddy Riley, Lord. He done got into my phone, and he messes with it on my internet today. Got me twice today. But
Morgan, I was gonna ask what the name of your blog is.
Oh, it's Sunshine Styles.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll write it next to my name here so it's easier to.
Okay, I took that down. And because we'll definitely go through there. I'll look through there and see what resources you posted, and see if we could work together to promote resources effectively, so everyone in the community, the audience you can reach and the audience we can reach, can take action. And I was also gonna say, just to answer your question, like, what can I do? You know, like I was saying to Drew, keep having that dialogue with people who don't want to have that dialogue. And, you know, maybe you'll have to approach it. You'll have to design your approach accordingly, you know your settings, know who you're talking to. And when you do, make sure you don't take any disrespect towards you or towards Black people as they're speaking. Just don't let them disrespect, you know, but have that conversation, even when it's difficult.
I love it. All right, y'all, we got 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes until 8:30, and you know how, Eric, you know how prompt I am.
Yep. So how y'all feel? How you
Can
feel?
we look at Mike's artwork right there?
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually display this at Tease Me when it gets finished, and we'll put it up. We're gonna do the signature and all that. So next week, it's 8:29. So next week, our top, first off, thank everybody that was on. This was awesome. You guys are amazing. And I'm just thankful to be surrounded. Every single one of you was recommended. And I'm thankful that Eric and I had the opportunity to get to spend a little bit of time with you guys. So thank you for that. And then secondly, we will be back every Friday I said every Friday. So next Friday, we're going to talk about education. And then the following Friday, we'll actually end it with faith. So we got a lot of different panelists. We're kind of putting them together right now. But if you guys have questions for the people that are watching, and you can put it in the chat, but if you have questions as we look at next week, I really would like to see more questions tailored to like some of the teachers that we'll have on. And, you know, I like the fact Morgan talked about one of her teachers earlier on and just their teaching style. But I know my nephew has experienced some racism. I'm sure other people have experienced some type of racism. But if there's something that you would like for us to ask our educators for next week, I would love for you guys drop it in the chat or send an email to info@teasemeindy.com. Just let us know. Eric is gonna be our host. I'm just the co-host, but I had to be a little bit of a host today, Eric. I appreciate Teddy Riley getting in and messing with your internet. So we're gonna have to, you know, we're gonna have to do something about that.
I mean, he needs to get over it. He needs to get over it.
Hey, listen,
guess,
you
like
saved me a piece of pie, Tamika, because I'm coming.
All right.
I'm coming. I know I can't sit in there, but you saved me a piece of pie. I'm coming. A cookie, whatever it is.
By the time you come, we might be open outside. So y'all come on over.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna call you.
Man, drive safe, man.
Yeah, man. It's a
Drew,
family vacation.
Hey,
Drew, before we leave, 6468. Oh, let me not give you my address. But can you go ahead and send that autograph? Make that out to the Green Eye Bandit.
You got it, man.
Like I said, man, when I saw that, I was like, hold up.
You got it, man. Yeah, as soon as I get my pie from Tamika, then you get your autograph. Done.
So last thing, a couple of things. Black Women in Charge, we have the march this Saturday, or not Saturday, this Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. So we're gonna meet where at Monument Circle, Taylor? Where are we meeting at?
Indiana State Capitol Building, same place as last week.
Indiana State Capitol Building. So if you have a chance, you're in town, you're in Indiana, come support from 3 to 5. We'll start at 3, obviously, and end at 5. We'll marching from one location to another, so don't come at 5 to the wrong location. But join us on Sunday from 3 to 5. Tune in next Friday. And then we have some events going on with Catch the Stars as well. We have our Scholar Athlete Dinner next week that we will actually be giving out. We'll be honoring 47 Indianapolis Scholar Athletes. So for more information, check out catchthestars.org. And we would love to see you guys there next Thursday. So a lot of great things all about the youth. Morgan, Taylor, Drew, Eric, Stephen, Mike, Yasmin, and I'm almost forgetting her name. Nina Hyatt. Nia Hyatt. Thank you guys so much for coming in today.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Tamika.
Have a great weekend.
Mike, I'll be
See y'all
back
next
tomorrow.
week. God bless y'all.
Peace, everybody.
All right.